Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Out on a Limb podcast with your hosts Will and Allison and Samantha.
Sound like
Welcome.
you said swell.
I know.
Swell. Will is swell.
Swill.
I heard swell.
Swill.
Swill.
At any rate, we're going to talk today about light language.
Mm.
And for those of you who don't,
That was an awkward pause.
for those of you who don't know what light language is, we're going to go over all of that, how it relates to Christianity. And
Okay, you just threw me a curveball.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
It
yeah,
does.
I guess it would.
Yeah.
right.
See, we
And
all act like we don't know what we're
Funny
talking about.
stories, because I've got a lot of them.
We do.
Because light language can be quite funny.
Yeah, this is gonna be cool.
Yes, it is.
Stay
Mhm.
tuned.
So do you want to start? What would you like to say about light language? Is there anything off the riff?
The first time I heard it, I thought it was BS.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The next time I heard it, I felt like, which is totally opposite. I felt like it was calling me home.
Mm.
Mm.
Like I just felt like it was,
Yeah.
it was making me homesick.
Resonating.
Wow, yeah,
So,
yeah. And that's when I was like, okay, there's something to this. And so then I asked someone, how do I like make this happen? And they said, well, we will activate you. And I still don't, okay, I'm still trying to get into this terminology of activate. But I know that once somebody shows me physically, tangibly how to do
Mhm,
something,
sure.
then I can do it, generally speaking. And so this woman met with me and we worked on it together, like where she just said, just start talking. And she was, like she had been doing light language and she said, I just want you to join in with me. And I just had garbage coming out of my mouth. And then all of a sudden this
Energy.
passion,
Yeah.
like it was, and it sounded sort of Italian sounding.
Hmm.
I wasn't going Mamma Mia, but it was like this, just, eros, theros, like all this,
Mhm.
like it sounded like beautiful Latin,
Yeah.
if there's such a thing. And it just was flowing and tears were coming down my
Ooh,
face.
yeah.
And, and she was like, keep going. Cause I'm kind of going, what am I saying? How long does this go on for? And oh my God, I'm ready for this to be over. And we just went on and on and on. And then after that, I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Because it was a thing and it was interesting. And then I thought, well, I wouldn't be taught it unless I was supposed to do something with it. But then nothing occurred for me to really do with it.
Yeah.
I did do it for a couple of people and realized that I kind of could interpret the intention.
Yeah.
So I could, in the middle of the flow, I could say what they were saying,
Yeah.
but I still felt like, am I really doing this or is
Sure.
this BS?
Yeah.
And then the idea that everybody hears what they need to hear or receives it on a different level.
Right.
I thought, well, I can't get it wrong then, it's like, so, and then I had a freak thing. This is just all my occurrences with light language. And then I had a freak thing happen where, I had someone who I hadn't talked to in years reach out to me, sent me a text and she said, do you know anything about light language? And I'm thinking, well, I know a little bit about it. And I said, I'm familiar with it. And I'm wondering where she was going with it. She says, well, I get channelings, like, messages, downloads. And I said, yeah. And she said, I don't know if it's going to make sense to you, but they're saying that you need to be doing light language. And that it's really important at this time. And I'm kind of going, okay. And this was like probably a year and a half
After.
And she said, I've known this for a while and I'm only giving this message to you now. And
Wow.
I'm kind of going, okay.
Wow.
So here I've been given this message from someone I haven't talked to in the longest time. And I'm still going, okay, now what am I supposed to do with it? Which is that happens a lot to us when we're going on these paths where we learn something new and then it just sits there and we go, well, I wouldn't have gone through this, or I wouldn't have felt the urge to learn this. Like maybe it's Reiki, or maybe it's, I wouldn't have gone on this path unless there was some meaning behind what I'm supposed to do with it.
Right.
And here I've gotten this message. I still don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do with it, but it's there.
Yeah.
And
It's a tool. It's a tool.
So let's kind of talk about it. What is
maybe
light
something,
language,
maybe
right?
this is all for me, this whole discussion.
Could be.
Maybe. So light language is energetic vibration, energy moving through a human body. It's being tapped into because we're an antenna.
Mhm.
And then it moves through the human body. And a lot of times when we say light language, it's because it's coming out verbally, and it may sound like gibberish. Sometimes it sounds a European language of some sort. Sometimes it sounds Japanese or Inuit.
Alaskan? Yeah.
Inuit,
yeah.
which is kind of shamanic sounding.
Mhm.
Sometimes it sounds like a robot.
Yeah.
Sometimes
What?
it sounds
Or
like
insects.
insects clicking. Yeah, that's
Clicking.
so cool.
Yeah.
It's trippy.
But light language doesn't just have to come out verbally. It also can come out in writing.
Yep.
So you might be writing kind of
Symbols.
gobbledygook or scribbling and things like that.
But it always
Or-
feels so good to look at.
It is interesting, right? Or it comes out through the body.
Hand movements,
Which I do that
gestures.
too.
Yeah.
Right. So that's typically how, or your body could move, but a lot of times it's your arms. And so the reason that it's kind of equated with Christianity is because in the Christian church, they call it speaking in tongues.
Yep.
And it is a sign of the Holy Spirit coming upon you. And that again is energy moving through your body and coming out through your voice typically. And it doesn't make sense. Now, I think in the church, they usually have somebody who speaks, and they call this your gifts of the Spirit or whatever. There's somebody who speaks the light language and somebody who interprets the light language. So somebody will have the gift of interpretation.
That's interesting.
But it is
They can use
interesting.
that a lot of different ways. You
Yeah.
have to really trust that
You have
person.
to trust.
Yeah.
But what I hear most often from the beings that talk about light language
Mhm.
is that it's not really interpretable like we would understand.
Yeah.
So you might hear a 5-minute light language message and they'll say, this was just a blessing, blah, blah, blah. But it is interpreted by our soul, our energy body vibrates and receives that frequency and that energy.
Yep.
So it's really fascinating. And it's another way, because this is kind of a role that I understand that I'm here for, is to bridge this understanding between Christianity and spirituality.
Mhm.
And it's another way that we can bridge that, because we call it light language or we call it speaking in tongues, but it's the same thing,
Yeah.
right? It's just a matter of what do we call it?
Mhm.
So we have a lot of labels in Christianity and they're afraid to look at it from a metaphysical aspect, but it's really the same thing.
Well, because like I think of it with Jehovah's Witnesses, and it gave me such a bad like. Then I hear light language, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I realize,
Yeah.
oh wait,
Yeah.
that's nothing more than like talking in tongues. And I'm kind of like going back to, well, that's sort of creepy, It was really strange, that whole evolution of going back and forth. And so I always worry that, if I do that, then
Yep.
people are going to go, oh, well, you're talking in tongues, which, then I think of the snakes and all this other crazy
Sure.
stuff,
Yep.
Sorry, I
Oh,
don't mean to say
yeah.
crazy, but, different.
Yeah. We're not stomping around and holding snakes and right. Yeah.
No, in fact, it's often so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like poetry.
Yeah.
It can really sound weird though, because when you
Mhm.
first started channeling
Yeah.
and light language would come through often, all of the different races of
He's like,
beings,
did it?
all of the races of beings that we would speak to would have it sounded a little different,
Yeah.
and it just would crack me up. And it was so hard because I'm trying to be the facilitator and I'm trying to ask the questions and be serious and whatever. And it would be all I could do not to bust out laughing when you would start speaking. When I'm watching my husband, and
Well,
he's
yeah,
speaking this stuff coming
That
out.
has got to be weird.
It was very weird.
I mean,
Uh,
I can't tell you what takes place. Other than I just know that the energy shifts in such a dramatic way that I mean, at that point, I'm assuming that's all I can assume is that light language is coming out. I don't know that it's actually coming out. So I've never heard myself actually channel light language.
Unless you re-listen.
Yeah, unless I'm
Yeah, yeah.
purposely re-listening to that.
So I know this is kind of an aside, but that was shocking. So is that kind of the most like thing that he's done where it's come out and you've just been like, who is this person?
Yeah, that's probably
Well, that and probably when we've done some of the very intense healings we've done.
yeah. When I can see energy moving through your
Yeah.
body because you're writhing in pain, because you're
Oh,
experiencing what the client is.
Yeah.
Even though your body doesn't have any residual.
Surrogate healing
Problem?
Oh, okay.
We did these very intensive 15-minute surrogate healing sessions when I first started channeling. They were very profound. But yeah, my body definitely went through the ringer on that. So
And he would moan and make it was very disturbing to watch.
Mhm.
but I trusted. And anyway.
Yeah. But the light language, I could see how seeing
took
it
me
come out
probably
of his
2
mouth.
years.
Yeah. You'd just be going, because sometimes it can be really off-putting when you're not prepared for it, when it's new or when it changes.
Yeah.
And it sounds different. Some of it is just kind of like you're supposed to, a lot of people have their eyes closed, and I always have my eyes open going, what is this person doing?
Mhm.
I'm fascinated by it.
And part of it is I'm just so.
No, I'm kind of right there with you. I do the same thing. So like if I'm listening to somebody else's light language, that first moment when it starts to kick in, my brain is like, and then I have to really release and just let the energy.
My brain
flow.
wants to giggle right away because it just it's surprising. It surprises you.
Yeah.
But when you were first starting to channel in 2018, early 2018, and it was when you were laying down and I was inducing you, somebody had written a whole page of light language. I know we have a couple of friends that do that. I don't remember which friend it was, but they said, I wonder if Will could interpret this written light language while he's in trance. So I'm like, oh, I don't know. Let's try. What the heck? So I asked, because we had the collective, and I said, could he interpret this light language? And you said yes, or the collective said yes. I said, okay. So I held it up over his, he's laying on a table, and I hold it up over his face like this. And I said, okay, it's above you now. And you fluttered your eyes like this.
Oh, that must have been hard.
It was really weird.
Yeah.
And you opened your eyes.
I had no idea.
Thank God it wasn't just the whites of his eyes.
And I think, if I recall correctly, you read it in light language. And then I said, well, what did that mean? And you interpreted it.
Oh, Jesus.
It was wild.
Oh my God. Yeah, that one would have been freaky.
It was wild.
I have no recollection of that. So.
I have a lot of funny stories about light language. So then we sort of graduated into you being in a chair.
Yeah.
And we moved from the study out into the living room, and we would.
I remember this one. Yeah.
This is when we started doing monthly channelings. I think we actually did them 2 times a month at that point.
Yeah, we were doing twice a month. Yeah. For
the community or whoever wanted to come. So we had a group of people in our living room, and he's sitting there. And this particular night, one of Natalie's friends, and I asked her today if I could have permission to talk about this, and she said, "Sure, Mom, go ahead." So I think she was probably 18 at the time.
Maybe a little
17, 18.
Yeah.
And one of her good friends was fascinated by all this. And Natalie at that time was kind of like,
oh yeah, we embarrass our kids. And that's without just like the normal stuff.
But this was supposed to be just the collective, nothing else.
Yeah, it was just supposed to be the collective.
Just a channeling, normal channeling.
And her friend wanted to participate and sit in on it.
Yeah.
So she said, I'm not going to do it unless Natalie, you sit in on it too. Because Natalie's like, I don't want to do that. Okay, I'll sit in. So the two of them are sitting there on the couch. Well, in the audience was this other lady who was just all of a sudden this light, because when the light language comes upon you, oftentimes you're not ready. You're not trying like you were. It just hits you. It's one of those gifts that are going to be coming on to people as we move into 2024 and further. And so it came upon her. You remember who I'm talking about? And she couldn't control it often.
Her friend or this other woman?
Just
some woman that was in the audience.
So
Natalie and her friend are sitting over on the couch.
Uh-huh.
And in the audience also is this lady that we know that speaks light language, and she really has a hard time controlling it. So all of a sudden, I don't know what brought it on, but you started speaking light language.
No,
right?
If I remember right, something came over her where she couldn't hold it back. So I guess she asked.
Oh yeah. If she started it,
if she could speak in light language, and so she did. She was going on with her light language. And somewhere as she was starting to wrap up, apparently I broke out into the light language back to her, and we were having this two-way conversation.
Yes. And I'll tell you what they said that meant. But in the meantime, so there's probably like, I don't know, 10 people sitting there, right? And so as this woman, we can just call her Sue, as she's doing her light language, there were some other people sitting beside her, and they were just, comforting her or whatever, giving her some comfort. And she kept going, and it was going for a little while.
Yeah, that can get a little obnoxious.
One woman went to the bathroom because she wanted to laugh because it was funny. And I was having a hard time not laughing. Well, we debriefed with Natalie afterwards, and she goes, "Oh my God, Mom, what was that? This woman is like having a nervous breakdown and just sitting there, and all you can do is put your hand on her. If it happened for another 60 seconds, I was ready to call 911. She was just having this episode and you're just sitting there with your hand.
What kind of light language was she doing?
No, it's just normal
It
light
was,
language.
I don't know, but
It wasn't like the mantis or
on and on and on and on. And I guess she was moving a little bit.
It was normal light language, but it was very, pronounced. There was a lot of movement. There was, some clicking and some.
She's like, and good God, this woman is obviously in crisis, and all you can do is put your hand on her leg or her arm.
That's how Natalie interpreted it and all.
Oh my gosh.
So no wonder she.
And I
doesn't
thought,
wanna-
this is perfect. The first time she decides to sit in on a channeling, and we've scarred her for life.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was hilarious debriefing afterwards and hearing their perspective. And it was brand new to me. I don't think I had heard maybe once or twice. Anyway, it was wild. Okay. So then after they get done with their back and forth light language conversation, I asked,
which is a really weird thing. I have not heard anyone go back and forth. That would be
it
fun.
Was weird. You've done it since then a couple of times.
There's a couple of the people that it's happened.
And I said, what was that all about? And they said, well, these two beings were from the same place. And one was like, hey, imagine meeting you here. And the other was like, hey, on this
a friendly conversation between
by two beings who showed up on this plane at the same time. And they're both back and forth like, oh my God, this is so cool. We can talk to each other.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It was insane.
That's weird.
It really was weird.
Well, I would have thought they were talking about something profound, like maybe we should share this with these guys. Maybe we should. And no, it's like,
no, they said it was two
doing?
beings giving themselves a greeting on planet Earth.
Yeah.
That was funny.
I know that I've had it come over me like typically when I'm in the car and I'm getting ready to, it's interesting because it's usually when I'm getting ready to go over this, we call it a flyover that goes over this marsh area and then it goes onto the two bridges that take you to Hilton Head. And it usually hits me right as I'm going towards that first flyover. Wow. And it's like, I
wonder what it is about that energy there.
I don't know. And when it comes out of me, it's always it's this very impassioned sort of whatever. Cause I analyze it and go, does that sound like other people's light language? Does it like, cause sometimes I get stuck on a sound and I'm kind of going, is this even is this not syntactically correct? So it must be BS. Like it's really,
well, see, and you're in that conscious state, obviously, because you're driving.
Yes.
So it's coming out through a conscious state. For when I'm doing it, I have no recollection of it. So it's very different for me. And it's more of that, what I feel is a very, expanded state of energy when it connects, when it's ready to come out, my entire energy field shifts to a point at which it's much different than the whoever I'm connected to at that point.
I feel it build up here and then it's just like I just got to get it out, but I don't know when to stop it because I know at some point it trickles off, but I know if I'm interpreting it to somebody, like, because I can feel the energy of it and I don't know how I can interpret because I can't, like, it's not, but, I can get it for a little bit. And then it's like, okay, I know what it's like when I'm doing tarot and, I'm looking for I've read what the card is and then I flip maybe some other cards for clarification. And then I throw one too many cards. Like I look at it and I'm like going, nope, that's garbage. Like, I just know that's not part of the message.
Yeah.
It just feels off. And that's it. It just like, okay, turn the faucet off.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a feeling. But I know when I do it with my hands combined, I am literally pushing energy around.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
That I can feel like it's releasing, opening up, moving. Like,
I mean, I think you've mentioned that a couple of times in my light language where I'm actually doing, it almost looks like I'm doing like some sort of like shamanic clearing of the energy field or something where
you move your hands around.
That's what it feels like. Because you're, a lot of it is clearing the space up here and then moving it down, and then there's waves and like it. So a lot of it's hitting the different chakra points for sure. And some of it feels like it's the energy field around you. So this is the most I've talked to them about because like I'm still kind of in the closet, like
if in the light language.
Well, because you feel like, am I supposed to be doing this? How long am I supposed to do it? Like I know if I do a card reading, okay, here's the card. I'm going to say what's there.
There's a
Here's the
process.
card, and when I'm doing intuitive work, it's like, okay, this is the message. Let me deliver it.
Sure. This is different.
Yeah. It's a flow of energy coming through, and it's just,
I was in the same place when it first started happening, and
you're making me feel more normal. Thank you.
Sure.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, because it was like, she was like, oh, you spoke light language again. I'm like, really? Oh. And so then I would start to question.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, because I was like, I didn't really think of
Sorry.
myself as doing light language. I didn't think that was ever going to come out. I heard it from
Yeah.
other people, but I was like, I'm not going to ever be speaking light language.
Well,
But
you did it pretty much right away.
yeah. I mean, so
Gosh.
it's hard for me to equate that, but there is still that question there. But then over time, as I'm introduced to more people and more,
Normalizes it.
Yeah. And Maria, who we've had on the podcast before.
Oh, she just dives right
yeah,
in and like
and
owns it.
when we do it, like when we were doing our galactic group at the little spiritual co-op that we go to, there's a lot of times that she'll do light language in there, and then she'll ask if I want to join in after hers. So yeah, so we'll tandem that.
That's
and
cool.
so it makes it, the more I do it, the more I feel comfortable. And that I like, because that's more of an intention to bring it through, not while I'm already in trance doing something else where it comes out. That is different.
When you bring it out when you're already in trance,
Yeah.
there's usually a couple of reasons. First, because somebody in our group has asked, can you give us a light language blessing or a
Okay.
light language healing or
Yeah.
something like that? Or a lot of times when I call in a particular being,
Mhm.
for the energy to settle in for you to speak English,
Mm.
you use light language a lot of
Oh.
times to help. I think it helps to balance your energy
Oh,
with that
okay.
energy.
Okay.
That's a little bit easier than doing Daniel's thing where,
It's-
Oh, yeah.
the-
Daniel Scranton, if you
the
have
dial-in modem.
yeah. I mean, he is amazing.
Yeah,
he
He
is
is
amazing,
amazing.
Sure, yeah.
but I can't listen to him
That had to be a tough one to,
to be vulnerable enough to put that
To
out.
put that out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we all connect in different ways, and
Yeah.
it's
So Daniel Scranton started channeling the Arcturians. He's fantastic. He's since started channeling a couple of other groups, but if you listen to him, it's very odd, and you'll hear the light language as he's bringing, and that's what I'm saying. He's tuning to their energy.
yeah, that's what it
Yes,
made me
yeah.
think of, is that
But it's
tuning in.
it's off-putting. I can't listen to it. I have to read his transcripts.
Oh, because it's really, well, I just fast forwarded it through that part. But then you never know what you might receive from that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
who knows?
Well,
It's-
it's like what we talked about on a previous podcast with Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks. I couldn't listen to that vibration. I couldn't
Mhm.
listen.
Right.
It just didn't settle with me. So it might be the same thing.
Yeah.
It might not be right now that you can listen to it, but maybe, who knows, in 6 months, a year, 2 years, all of a sudden that tone is
Some
exactly
people
what you
enjoy
need.
it. I've heard other
Well,
people.
and it's funny because, I know that when I was saying, hey, can you help me, channel, I want to do it like you do it, Will, which is not how I do it. But anyway, you kind of go, okay, so what's my being? What's my group going to be like? What's it going to sound like? And it's like, you can't pick and choose. It happens
just-
and
yeah.
it evolves and it does whatever it's going to do. So, I'm sure that and I know with my light language, I'm kind of like going, okay, this is cool. I like this. This is like, almost like French or Italian. I love the flow of it, and I'm like going, God, hopefully nothing else comes out of my mouth. And I'm sure that Daniel, when he started that, was going,
Yeah.
what the?
Right,
It's
right,
like,
right.
I got to do this.
Yeah.
You can't, it's just what flows, and you have to have that vulnerability and
Surrender.
whatever.
You have
yeah.
to surrender. You really have to surrender.
Yeah.
Um,
Now you've said that there's been a couple of times you've said when I've come out of channel that oh, you were singing again. I'm like,
well, part of the light language is like shamanic. When the shamans come in to do blessings and stuff,
Mhm.
often it is singing. It's like kind of
sing-songy.
chanting kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like that you
yeah.
would hear them do if they were around a fire and whatever.
Well,
That kind
You're
of
not
thing.
doing supercalifragilistic here. it's
You're right.
it's a
It's
yeah,
like
Yes.
if you heard American Indians or something. It would
yeah.
yeah.
like
Which,
them.
when you think about it, I mean, that's what they were
Oh,
doing.
yeah,
is 'cause,
sure.
yeah.
Bringing in.
Yeah.
So that shamanic Shastro
Mm-mm.
that you shared with me.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, that, yes.
So he he says he chants something in the middle
Yes.
of it. I have looked, you guys, this is insane. I have looked everywhere. It's like so beautiful.
Mhm.
Shastro shamanic healing. And shamanic healing is one of his tracks. And Will introduced me
Yep.
to it. And I listen to it all the time before I go into.
I haven't
like,
listened to it for
oh my
forever.
God. So there is a point at which he chants something.
Yeah.
And I have said, what is this that Shastro chants? What is
You
it? You know,
can't find it.
like there is nothing. It's like nobody has ever heard it. Like I'm the only person in the world who's ever heard this. And I've come to the conclusion it has to be light language that
Mhm.
because it's otherwise somebody would know what it was.
Yeah, it would
Interesting.
be interpreted through some sort of language software to say, hey, this is what it is.
Yeah. And the thing
Yeah.
is, you can't even find the questions of anyone asking.
Yeah.
What it's like it doesn't exist.
Do, 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 do.
Yeah, it is so messed
Yeah.
up.
Well, we were talking about when you do light language, a lot of times as a being is coming in to
Mhm.
acclimate
Yeah.
or attenuate your
I
energy.
like that.
Well, sometimes during higher self channelings,
Mhm.
you whisper it now more
Hmm.
often, but I can see your lips moving and you're whispering a light language. And whenever I've asked about that, it's that you're kind of attuning to the energy
Oh,
of the higher
because
self.
of their higher self's energy.
Mhm.
But it's neat that light language is the vehicle.
Yeah.
And it feels
Yeah.
so when it doesn't come in the middle of channeling, when it's organic right from the beginning, because even in that I drop into, but I can drop into and out of that. If it's just specifically for light language, I can drop into that and out of that pretty quickly.
Mhm.
Because I can feel it almost explode in me. And then just like you say, just wane to
Mhm.
nothing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, doop, and then I'm back. So, but it is that when it begins to start, there is something that just completely overtakes all of my energy. And that's what I felt like when I first started channeling. But it's nice because I don't speak in light language all the time. So when this happens, it's
Mhm.
almost refreshing to have that explosion of energy, that impulse of energy to
Mhm.
overtake my body like
So
that.
I don't know if Maria watches this at all. You should be watching this, Maria. But I would love for you to comment because we've brought you up a couple of times.
Yep.
Comment below in the comment section and share with us what it's like for you. Because to me, it feels like it's her heart space, like it's
Oh, yeah.
building up there.
When she speaks. the
Yeah.
healing
Yeah,
goes.
Yeah. And so it seems like it's coming from that space. And I know for me, it's like this little itty bitty thing. And with her, I just feel like it's this whoom, and it is all consuming with her. And yet, like with you, you're saying you feel this connectedness coming down. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's presenting. And just like we're
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
like, some people,
Yeah.
I wonder when people write it, if it builds up in here and comes down the
Or
arm,
the
or if
fingers
it's,
start to tingle or
yeah,
whatever.
where
That's a really good point because seems
I'm full of them.
it seems unrelated, but
Just ask.
when we do pet channelings,
Yeah.
and I'm investigating a behavioral or a physical issue or something, and then I want to go and move into a healing,
Mhm.
I try to connect them with source, and I'll say, hey, when you know that you're connected to source at all times, and they're like, yes. I said, well, when that energy comes down, when it's connected to you, where does it come in?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the crown,
Mhm.
sometimes it's the back of their neck, sometimes it's their heart. It's all different where they connect physically. So that's interesting. I like that.
Well, and I just know that when I'm doing it so much of the time, I'm doing this movement over
top.
my head,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
it's just clearing energy. A lot of it's maintenance, it
Mm.
feels like.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I went with it longer, or if I did it the next day, if I did it every day, like maybe there's going, okay, damn it, we had you cleared up and we were ready for the big stuff. And then you didn't do it again for another 2 months,
Right.
maybe it's something like that. Cause it's
Could be.
it's a lot of clearing, but anyway.
It could be, but a
Could
lot
be.
of people are finding, and if you find this turning on, let us know in the comments. If you need some assistance with it, let us know. Send us an email.
I
But
thought you were saying like, if you're turned on by this or something.
if you find it turning on,
Yeah, that was
unexpectedly,
Yeah.
because like you said,
a
it'll just come out
suggestion, can make it start happening.
and
Yeah.
it just comes out and you can't stop it. It just is like a floodgate. And you were going to talk about
Yeah, I
that
was-
friend,
And it's
right?
not
Yeah, it
that
was-
scary. Like when you say
No.
it like that, like some people, because I remember somebody describing that to me and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I want this. Like,
So I've got two stories. So one, this good friend of ours, she's never spoken light language before. She's in the metaphysical space, but she texts me one morning.
She's actually a nurse.
Yeah, she's a nurse. trauma nurse, I think. Anyway, so she texts me in the morning, this particular morning, and says, "Oh my God, well, I can't stop." And I'm like, "What?" And she says, "Light language. It just won't." I woke up this morning at like 6:30 and it won't stop. And by that point, it was already 9 o'clock in the morning. So she sends me like 3 15-minute like recordings, clips of it. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's stunning. And then she texts me again at like 2 o'clock. She said, "It still hasn't stopped." She said it didn't stop until like 9 o'clock that night.
Well, she wasn't walking around.
No, she was
calling it out to
home.
people.
She was at home.
Oh,
yeah, she was at home.
okay.
She just woke up. So she had the day off. So she just she would think of something, and all of a sudden she started talking light language.
Yeah, that's how it's in the car with me, where I'm like, no matter what I think, it's still just like I could go, well, I need to stop up. Like I just feel the compulsion. Okay.
Right. And then so then we were kind of in a group of people talking about light language, and this one friend says, whenever it overtakes me, even if I'm at the grocery store, say in the produce aisle, I'll just get my cell phone out and I'll hold it up to my ear and I'll just start talking light language to the cell phone as if I'm talking in a foreign language to somebody else.
Oh my God.
Good trick.
Yes.
That's a tip.
Yes. Hot tip.
Unless you start doing the reptilian or draconian sounding one, and then people are going to go, "You're a possessed man."
Yeah. So who knows? But
but most of it doesn't sound like that. Yeah.
Well, what's really interesting is when the mantis beings, and the mantis beings are in 11th and 12th dimension, they're very high dimensional beings, but they're insects, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so they click, they make clicking sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that clicking sound is actually upgrading our DNA. We know that that's
DNA
what
activator.
it's doing, in addition to attuning the body to the person who's channeling it. So Judy is the first one, and she has we interviewed her, so you can watch her show.
Judy?
Mm-hmm.
I
Judy B?
don't think I've ever heard her do light language.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. I mean, she doesn't do it a whole lot. She does it when she's doing healing work over her clients.
Yeah.
When she's doing Reiki,
Right?
intuitive Reiki.
Judy Reiki.
But
Judy Reiki.
I remember
Reiki.
one time up here in the treehouse, helping her to channel, getting her energy up and all of that. And it took a while. It took like 15 minutes of the mantis who are on her team of coming in and doing DNA activations. They told us that after the fact that that's what they were doing for the three of us.
Yep.
So it sounds really weird clicking and stuff, but it is always beautiful.
Yeah. The thing is, it sounds weird, but you get so into it. Like it's just like you almost are hungering for that next sound. And I thought, well, I will never channel that. That will never come through me because I hear like they'll snap their fingers and they'll go like this and then click, click, click. And I'm like, well, my mouth can't even do that stuff. And I can't even, like, I am so bad at doing that.
Neither can his. His voice can't sing or do the sounds that he does when he's doing light language. But that's the point.
When I was in church, I never sang because I know I can't sing because I know my voice can't do those things. But apparently I can sing. And people say that, hey, that
I
was
wouldn't
beautiful.
call it singing.
No,
it's toning,
chanting, oming, chanting. Yeah. But still, it's still got some rhythm to it. And I don't proclaim to have rhythm. So
you are truly a white man in every essence.
Exactly.
Right? Rhythm.
But I was going to say that you had a really good experience with light language from a good friend that has since moved away, but during that one of our retreats that we had.
What?
Well, one of our sound baths that we had, she did light language to you, when trying to get the story right here, people.
Get your story straight.
She came to us. I think she wanted a channel too. She was wanting to.
Oh, yeah,
yes,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
What was she speaking in light language during that?
I think so. I think that's what that.
But anyway, I kept feeling my third eye pulsating. It was really interesting. So whatever she was doing, she came to us to be a client.
Yeah.
But whatever she ended up doing during that session was activating my third eye.
She came to us for as a client. Did we do a higher self channeling or was it? I think
so.
And then she came back. No, yeah, it was that. And she wanted to, I don't know. She mentioned something about light language, though she was real timid about it. And she wanted to, we talked to her about it. And what really kind of brought it on was sound, like vibration.
Sound would bring it on for her.
Of instruments and stuff like that. But she's like, but I don't know what to do with it all. I said, I know exactly what to do. I said, if you're up for it, I'll set it up and you come and do your thing. So I did a sound bath And she came, and as soon as that vibration started of playing the instruments, she just
popped
dropped
out.
in and went to each individual one by one and gave them a light language blessing.
And it was different for everybody.
Everybody,
It
was
was-
a different
Was
experience,
really
yeah.
And she
interesting.
wasn't aware she was doing it.
She
So, like,
knew she knew about speaking in tongues, but didn't really quite understand that it was actually light language,
Mhm.
and it was so profound for everyone.
And I think one of it was a foreign language.
Yeah, there was a lady that came to us after, and she said, I speak Spanish, and when she started doing her blessing over me,
Mhm.
she was actually speaking to me in at least what I understood as Spanish. And
Yeah.
and this girl
Doesn't know Spanish.
at all. So
It was
yeah,
really interesting. She
very
was
interesting.
amazing.
Yeah.
well, I guess the thing that people have to recognize with light language, that it's serving a purpose. It's a beautiful thing. It's serving its purpose. You don't know how it's going to come in. And it can be awkward and weird. And especially if you've got, like, I had this thing with the whole Jehovah's Witness stuff, thinking, oh my God, this is so strange. But, it's just another expression. Like, we keep learning all of these different ways in which we express all of this.
Our
And it's
connectedness,
and it's not like we're going out there going, let me make something up. Let me come up with a
Yeah,
different
no,
way. Let me
yeah.
be exclusive and special because of this. It's like this stuff you feel the nudge, or you don't even feel the nudge and it just
It
happens.
just happens.
But a lot of times you feel the nudge to go a certain direction, to try
Mhm.
something, experience something.
Mhm.
And it's like, as long as you just keep leaving yourself open
Yeah.
and following those nudges, like, you find yourself in these spaces that are so freaking cool. I
And
mean,
it
I just love how you guys explore.
Oh yeah,
I see, I'm by myself,
True.
and so, like, it's somebody comes
Yeah.
in, they're just like, well, what can you do? Or what can you do for me? Or I need a healing on this. But it's not like, I feel like you guys kind of get to explore and experiment a bit
We
more
do.
because you've got someone who's asking questions. So that was the beauty of Abraham Hicks,
Yeah.
with her
Right.
husband. He would ask those questions, which,
yeah, it's a
Pulled that out of
I
her.
keep I'm just going to keep putting that out there. And if that's ever meant to come, somebody will come along that
Yeah.
can be that person to ask those questions. Cause I do want to explore and
Sure.
experience.
Right. But it does
It's
happen
fun.
a lot if you guys are healers, if you do Reiki work or
Mhm.
cranial sacral or any of those kinds of
Mhm.
modalities,
Mhm.
then often you may feel it overtake you.
Yep.
Go ahead and let it.
And if
Let it
it's
out.
overtaking you and you feel pressure in your throat, that's it wanting to express itself. It's wanting to
Right.
come through. And you may even just get into a conscious stream of channeling at that point, but it's the energy wanting to release and come out.
And I've heard in order to get the prime the pump, get the pump going, is just to start speaking in gibberish at first, and then
Which is what I
it'll
had
start
done.
to
Yeah,
flow out,
yeah.
or Dr.
Yeah.
Seuss types of rhyming.
Mhm.
Oh, really?
Nonsense stuff. yeah.
Nonsense rhyming will help it to
Yeah.
pop out as well. But you'll find that it really amps up your healing ability.
Which
I-
you really feel like when you first started, if it doesn't come to you naturally, like the way that I had done it, I just knew that I was ready for, I wanted to
Sure.
experience this. And she's just like, just open your mouth and start talking. And I felt so ridiculous. And then, it started to form into words. And then there's just like, it feels to me almost every time that I hear it, I just feel like I've returned home. Like it's a greater truth to the knowingness of everything. It's
because you're connecting into source energy, essentially, whether it is an aspect of source that represents a galactic being
Mhm.
or an angelic being or a shamanic perspective or whatever it is an essence of source. And it is that powerful energy that cannot be described or harnessed, and you're allowing it to move through your body. It's like a static dance for some of you who like that.
That's
But if you hear really nice music, it just reverberates in your body and you can't help but move your body. It's the same thing. It's an energy that is flowing through your body, and it happens to be verbalized, or it happens to be written, or it happens to be that your body moves.
For me, I'll say the most profound experience with light language for myself, that's the we call them water infused Reiki
Oh gosh.
sessions. So
We do them in the summer
We have
here.
a pool,
Oh.
and so we invite a number of people to come over, and Allison from behind, she'll lay hands on and provide Reiki.
I think it's very Orion-like to do that.
Right.
In the water. Yeah.
And then in front, I'll place a large crystal in their hand. I'll hold their hand and I'll tap into I'll say their consciousness or their energy. And this light language blessing will come out and I'll feel it build. So it takes a moment and I have to kind of lock into their energy. And once it locks in, each individual gets kind of like the girl did, each gets their own blessing. And it really is.
Occasionally it's in English, but a lot of times it's in light language.
And we had an experience this past summer where,
it's always profound.
There's always a great experience, but there's this particular, so it was a lady that we know. She was one of our volunteers with our nonprofit, and she was going through some health issues. So she decided to come, but at the same time, her mother came from Puerto Rico to visit her. And so her mother doesn't speak any English. And
we were already full.
Yeah,
and she goes, "Do you mind if I bring my mom? Can I bring my mom?" And we're like, "Bring her."
Bring her. So she's in the pool alongside her daughter. I get to the mother, and I just get that crystal in her hand and I hold her hand and I just feel this powerful energy just take over. And this blessing starts coming through. Next thing I know, she's flat on the surface of the water.
Right. So when I'm behind them, I grab them and then I move to the side and hold their legs up because all of a sudden they'll just drift back.
They go limp and so she's prone out on the surface of the water. Allison's holding
that happens frequently.
Yeah. And she's getting this massive blessing. And you can see there's tears flowing. There's all this flowing.
Goodness, yeah.
And then it takes a moment for her to kind of come back into her awareness. And then, I go on to the next and I go on. So as we wrap up and everybody's outside the pool, the girl that we know, our volunteer, came over and I said, I mean, how was that for your mom? She doesn't, probably. She said she was amazed. It was and so grateful and so thankful for the healing that she was provided. Yeah. So it really is amazing how I don't know what's going to take place from moment to moment, but when that energy locks in, you can't stop it.
It's that like very John the Baptist.
Sure.
Well, but I'm thinking and I wonder.
That's very much like a baptism in a church.
Yeah.
If you allow the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Have you guys really equated that until I just said
it? No,
I
don't think we have.
And here's the thing. I wonder if John the Baptist,
if that's what he was doing,
if he did light language.
That's good point. That's giving me the
lighting you up. Maybe we need to ask.
Yeah, you need to ask about.
We've never channeled John the Baptist. Maybe we need to talk to him.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, because
water's such an excellent conduction of all of this that how have you not seen that that's your own like baptismal kind of what?
And they call it. They do call it. It's baptism of the Holy Spirit. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that is interesting.
And well, now that
you were just trying to do Reiki, water infused Reiki.
We called it water infused Reiki.
This is what Allison thought of like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. She's like, "Hey, we got a pool. We could probably invite some people over and do some Reiki on them in the pool."
Oh my God, you guys! I don't know how you're not like.
No,
we're not. How everything pops up.
We're not starting our own church.
We just get this idea.
But it's interesting because, and now not to take it out of context, but when right around 2015 or 16, my mentor in mediumship and psychic work, Carol Cottrell, who's a great psychic here in town, before I took her class, I actually had a session by her. And, she had a client before.
That was interesting.
So
you went for a mediumship.
Right? I just went for a mediumship. I didn't know anything about mediumship at that point. I just went, "Oh, sure, I'll give it a try. I don't know what it is. I'll go and see who comes to talk to me." Well, I'm kind of in the little waiting room waiting for her to wrap up with one client. She wraps up with the client. She just kind of pokes her head out. "Hey, I'll be with you in a couple of minutes, whatever." I said, "No problem." So I'm just sitting there, just looking on my phone. She calls me in and she said, "Okay, I'm ready." So I walk through the door and she goes, "Hold on a minute." And this gives me chills just thinking about it. She says, "I don't normally do this." And I was like, "Do what?" She said, "I typically don't infuse my psychic reading of someone before I do a mediumship reading.
Mhm.
But I have to tell you what I just saw as you came through the door. And what I saw of you as you stepped through the door, she said, I don't know if anybody's ever told you this or not, but I see you as this, and now it makes sense as you're saying that, but I see you in this like,
Didn't they call it a priest?
yeah, like a priest or like a clergy, an aspect of a clergy, in a robe with a big, with a big hat on, and you just hold that presence as you walk through the door. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was like, what do I do with all that information? I have no idea. Well, okay, well, maybe that makes,
Right.
maybe there's some lifetime aspect that I'm still holding on to.
There might have been a past life or whatever she was seeing,
but it also then
It's very interesting.
So, rewind the clock back to when I was in, and I think we may have talked about this in a previous episode, but when we were in the Methodist church, I felt the Holy Spirit so profound that I was ready to give everything up and go into the ministry.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that, it's just kind of is baffling me how you guys didn't, but you had moved so away from the church too, like, and comparing, contrasting.
And for me, it just felt very natural to do that. It didn't have any connotation of,
well, John the Baptist was not putting crystals in people's hands, for
point.
sure.
Good point.
Much less having his wife assist
at least
him.
not that we know
Yeah.
of.
Right.
The whole, it's just a different take,
Sure.
a different process. And,
But it is opening, right. And I think that's the more important thing is it's opening that peer source, that peer connection to source at any point that you do any sort of light language, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's to a group of people, you're really bringing in the purest source of energy through you, through the expression of that light language, whatever it might sound like.
Yeah.
So let us know out there in the audience if you guys have had experiences with light language. Let us know what they are. Help to destigmatize. Yeah.
And just know that Will thought he had nothing to share on this topic.
Yeah.
Again,
You did have a lot.
You did very well.
That
But
was
in fun.
In the meantime, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already.
Yep.
Hit the notification bell.
Yes, there's a bell.
And share and like and all of that good jazz. And we will see you next time. Thanks
See
for
you guys.
joining us.
Bye.
Bye.